Hello and welcome to another episode of Spirit Plant Medicine. My name is Marc Caron, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Joanna Simundic and Cara Cosco. Now, Joanna is a trauma therapist in private practice. She's a MAPS affiliated psychedelic psychotherapist and trainer, MAPS clinical psychedelic researcher, and a lover of the Amazon rainforest. She is one of the directors of a Canadian nonprofit organization called Amazonia Yurahu Alliance. I hope I said that right. With its sister nonprofit in Brazil called Niushin. Together, the organizations work together to empower and support the Yawanawa village of Mutum in Acre State, Brazil, who act as stewards of the Amazon rainforest and its medicinal plants. And I think it's actually probably pronounced Yawanawa. We'll find out in a moment. And Cara Cosco, she's a writer, a sound healer, a space holder, and she became the creative director of the first ever Psychedelic Salon in 2019. And she raised $10,000 and eventually launched a six-figure business to fund psychedelic research and philosophy. Her mission is to use her 10 years of psychedelic medicine advocacy to heal creative entrepreneurs by writing. And we're here today to really speak of an event of their fundraising efforts where we can all play a part in ensuring that the wisdom keepers of the Amazon can pass down their traditional knowledge, practices, and to new generations so that they may continue to hold their unique identity into the 21st century. So there will be hosting an evening of music, beauty, and cultural celebration for the Indigenous and biocultural diversity of the Amazon rainforest. This was formed in 2020 by the founding members of the Yawanawa Board of Advisors, the Amazonia Yurahu Alliance, supporting the Yawanawa-led projects in the village of Mutum. So ladies, welcome to the program. It's great to see you. I love the work that you're doing. And one of the things that we love to do here at Spirit Plant Medicine is to support the work in regards to the Indigenous cultures, to maintain them, preserve them, and whatever they need for support, we're here to do that, and that's why we're here today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Marc.
Well, it's always a pleasure. So maybe we can start, Joanna, with you. You're doing a lot of great work in the psychedelic field, and the work that you're doing with MAPS, I think, is really incredible because they're doing such great work in the research of psychedelics. And maybe you can tell us about your journey there, what got you into this work, and where you see the future of it.
And specific to the work with the Yawanawa people.
Well, we'll get to that. I just want a little bit more of your background because,
Gotcha.
It's one thing to, with people who are working with psychedelics, it's another thing to, be working directly within the clinical research and to be a trainer and what that's really about, because it's lending the credibility and the scientific validation that's needed in regards to the medicines that these folks are using.
Okay, sure. Thanks for clarifying that. So, well, my journey started actually at the Spirit Plant Medicine conference, where I saw Marc Caron speaking about MDMA-assisted psychotherapy for PTSD. And I actually approached him at the conference and said, I want to be a psychedelic psychotherapist, which I'm sure he hears a lot. And then we met a few times. And then it just so happened that there was an opportunity for me to be part of the MAPS clinical trial here in Vancouver. And then it was just, at the right place at the right time with the right, I guess, requirements that I was able to be invited into the training starting in 2016 all the way to 2018. And then we started to see our first MDMA participant in 2018. And now we're wrapping up the study in Vancouver, actually. As of November, it will be completely done in Vancouver. And and then that kind of chapter will conclude. And so I guess part of this psychedelic journey that I've been on that has been invited into becoming my career as well, which I'm so grateful for, did start at the Spirit Plant Medicine conference. And it actually led me to kind of explore a little bit more of the Indigenous roots of this lineage of psychedelic medicine and trying to understand kind of what the foundation of that was, and that was important to me. And so that's kind of how I ended up finding myself in the Amazon.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the work that you do and being part of, just the scientific research that really lends, the credibility to the mainstream, for doctors and the medical establishment on that sense. So thank you very much for that. And thank you for the work that you do with these Indigenous tribes and preserving their heritage. And we'll get more into what that really means and what you're doing there. And how about you, Mia? I know you got involved years ago, first of the psychedelic salons, and maybe a little bit more about your background, your story, and how it led into these fundraising efforts, of which we've done before together in an event a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you having us on, especially Joanna, because Joanna is someone that I really look up to in terms of her work actually going to and being in the Amazon rainforest. That is a journey I have not yet dared myself, but something I look forward to actually in my life. And for me, as you know, and as we've talked before, on air and off, I have a passion for psychedelics as medicine, and I have ever since I was at university. So for me, I think the reason why Bridge Between Worlds, this fundraiser, is so like heartfelt. It's a heartfelt passion project because the medicine of the Amazon is something that has personally brought inspiration to me, brought me creativity, brought me wisdom, brought me acceptance, brought me compassion in a way that is quite ineffable, in a way that's also very transpersonal, psychospiritual. And so it's almost very intimate and personal to be doing this event. And it's something that for Joanna and I both, it's totally a new thing, because to really bridge the amazing arts and culture and wisdom of the Wanawa with the modern society of Vancouver, Canada, where this event is really a feat in itself. And I only hope that this event, even though I have fundraising experience, even though I love fundraising, and it's certainly something that speaks to me to enroll people in putting their money where their mouth is for causes in the psychedelic space, I only hope this event will be received for all of its beauty, for all of its wisdom. And it's very important that Joanna and I simply take roles as being able to hold the space for this event for the Indigenous wisdom keepers. So I hope that explains a little bit more about my inspiration.
Absolutely, it does. And again, I just want to acknowledge you both for that work in the fundraising field, because it's so important. And Stephen and I were on a call this morning with a couple of gentlemen who are, working to save and preserve and reclaim their lands in Mexico as well. And they've been traveling the world, sharing the story about their people. And maybe you can tell us, I think I did get it right the second time, Yawanawa, is that correct?
Yeah.
And I think that happened last time we spoke, maybe when we did a thing. And but maybe you can tell us a little bit about who they are and what they're dealing with, and what they're really hoping to achieve to preserve their culture.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I can start with this. So in continuing from the first thing that I mentioned, I found myself in the Amazon in 2019 with the Yawanawa people. You can also say Yawanawa. That's another version of that name. And really wanting to understand like where all the origins came from, and really got invited and into a beautiful women's retreat. And that, we got really like so hospitable. The village just welcomed us, and they really took care of us and supported us and really taught us about their culture through like oral tradition. We got to be face painted, body painted, to have the experience of what that means spiritually, as well as ceremonies that we got to be part of. And the women there were teaching us a lot about how they were able to kind of empower themselves in a community that was kind of more machismo, patriarchal, and be able to find their power. And it was a very, very beautiful experience. And so from there on, it kind of joined with a group here that originally was Amazonia 911, and then we just kind of converted to Amazonia Yurahu Alliance. We were able to make connections with the Yawanawa people. I've been going to Brazil like once or twice a year since, and got to be adopted into the family, got my Yawanawa name, which is Ivarani, which means transformation, like very, very, very family oriented. Yurahu itself means family as well in the Yawanawa language. And so it's just like the way that you want to bring us in as family and be able to create partnerships and alliances to help them to be able to go out and bridge with others to speak about how they can maybe support the Yawanawa people, specifically with what's going on in the Amazon and the political situation. Obviously, I won't get into details, but just around the Indigenous people of the Amazon not being able to basically being kind of pushed out by a lot of the illegal mining and deforestation that's happening there, which is kind of really impacting their villages, as well as like a lot of difficulty of like lack of resources and things like that, right? So part of our kind of focus is to focus on the medicinal plants of the Amazon rainforest, and specifically the medicinal men and women that are holding this tradition, for them to feel that they also have financial security, food security specifically, to be able to offer food that can sustain them in their villages so that they can actually work on this study of the medicinal plants and continue to offer that as treatments for physical ailments, emotional, mental health ailments. Like there, they have plants for, if a woman wants to be pregnant to improve fertility. There's plants there for if a woman doesn't want to be pregnant anymore. There's plants for children having nightmares. There's plants for everything on these leaf baths that are offered, right? And so through this project with our sister organization, Niushi, we're trying to kind of raise funds, and we'll be actually doing a tour starting with Vancouver. And then we're going to be continuing on into California as well. But it's like how to just kind of spread the awareness and let people know what we're doing and see who wants to come to support. But I guess the biggest piece is that we want to be respectful, because I'm a white woman, Mia's a white woman. And so like, what is our role when it comes to Indigenous people? And it's how to show respect and how to really collaborate with First Nations people here to really be respectful of the first people here and be able to see, who are the partnerships that we can create to bring these speakers in, to offer the opening prayers, to offer their voices and be able to, like come together with our guests from Brazil that are going to come and speak more about this experience as well. And we have been successful in making some of those connections over COVID. It was over Zoom that we had some connection made. So we just continue to create those partnerships and really for us to be holding that space for those connections to be made as the North and the South come together, right? So I feel very privileged to be part of that experience and play our roles in that.
And thank you for doing what you're doing and for sharing. And you led me to a couple of questions that I wanted to really put out there. And we'll start with this one. How do they feel about, like you said, us, white people or us, our Western culture coming in and appropriating, their culture and their medicines? Because one thing, psychedelic medicine is one thing, yet you also mentioned like all these different plants, because I believe plants are our medicine. It's the best medicine out there, in my opinion. So it's not just psychedelic plants or psychedelic medicines, but how do they feel about what they're seeing happening in the West and this resurgence of these medicines coming out of the jungle, really?
Yeah, there is, like, what we're seeing is that it's kind of a different experience, because a lot of their from what I've been told from the elders is that they have a lot of prophecies that came through from the elders that the white people are going to come, or the Westerners are going to come, and they're going to want to make contact again. But when they make contact now, it's going to be to actually help and support. And so to make alliances. So in the villages, you'll see like a lot of visitors coming, and the children are being taught that this is like, okay, this is good. And the young people are going out there and doing ceremonies, like right now there's a tour of the Yawanawa in the States, they're in New York as well. And They travel around, and they really enjoy sharing their culture. They're all about the joy, so alegría, like only joy, and they really want to be able to kind of like make these friendships and alliances, but it has to be in right relationship, because there's been a lot of offers that have not gone well and have been abused and have been kind of, corrupted. And so it's really important but they continue to reach out, and it's really beautiful. And sometimes it's a little tricky. Like we had our fundraiser in 2019 and we're trying to share this message. And obviously, we would rather that the message came directly from the Yawanawa rather than through us, but it's like that, how else are we going to do it? We're just going to get them to come. And we had like a lot of the community here kind of upset about our role in spreading this message. And it's been tricky being a bridge, because you're trying to figure out the most respectful way to do it, and you're not trying to appropriate in any way. But with the Yawanawa people, there's like this invitation, like, part of our organization is the name was given by one of the first female chief of the Yawanawa villages. We correspond with them regularly to get kind of their direction on what they would like to see in terms of our work. And so, these are the challenges around that. I hope I'm not in any way culturally appropriating. And if I am, I'm happy to receive feedback around it and find a way to make that better and more respectful. But I think the best way to do is to really have the voices of the First Nations people here to really kind of speak to like what it can look like here when we're doing it on this land, which is originally Turtle Island, right? And how to pay respect. And I think in the right relationship, these relationships can occur and can be done well, as long as we're willing to be humble and receive feedback and like know when we made a mistake and acknowledge it and correct it and repair it. I think it's a tricky conversation. It takes a lot of learning, and it's sometimes I want to shy away from it because I don't want to be in that kind of place. But it's like, how else are these things going to happen where these alliances and collaborations are going to take place, right? So I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to add, Mia, to what I just shared.
Yeah, I was going to just finish what you were saying by saying that the unfortunate barrier for many Caucasian and European leaders and community is that there's simply a lot of fear around saying the wrong thing by highlighting Indigenous efforts, and that fear will show. And fear by not acting and not illuminating and bringing awareness and bringing support to these important projects, literally fueling the heart of our planet, is unfortunate, because instead of feeling fear about putting yourself out there, let yourself learn, let yourself listen and be educated. Like, listen to the forest, listen to the sounds of nature, listen to what people who've learned from the land, what they have learned as well, and learn about plant-based medicine. This is a surefire way to actually be a fellow vanguard of the environment, be a true, climate guardian.
And I think I just wanted to add a little piece to that, Mia. Thank you. Is like, I feel like I'm in service to the Yawanawa because of all that they have offered me, like in terms of my expansion and what I've been able to develop. I've gotten to participate in Brazil in spiritual diets with them, gone to retreats, like really have learned a lot through their medicine that has really helped my expansion. What I offer in the psychedelic community is part of that. So I feel in service to support them. So it's not like I am helping them as though in the kind of like colonial way of, I'm important and I'm going to help. And no, it's like from like the depths of my heart of like just this deep gratitude for what they've offered me, and how can I show up? How can I volunteer my time and effort to support their needs as well, right? So this reciprocity, I think, is really important.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that, in my experience in the Spirit Plant Medicine conference world over the past 5 years, the reason I ask that question is because we do get some feedback at times that's in regards to, being Caucasian and appropriation. And I know that our hearts are in the right place, and we can't always control people's perception or their beliefs in that sense, but I think it's important that we show up with the right intention. And I remember, I don't know if either of you know Donnie Blakey before he passed. He's one of the first, if I'm not mistaken, he was one of the first Caucasian peyote roadmen. And we had a beautiful conversation at the conference one day, and we were just talking about his work, because he spent a lot of time in Nicaragua in the jungles and working with the indigenous people there. And he had told me a story how they were so surprised because, as you talk about the word colonial, it's kind of like the colonial white folk came in and started selling them the idea of houses and washing machines and all these things that put them in debt and putting their systems on them. And what Donnie said to me was really hit me hard, and I really took it to heart, was because he said that these people, they could not believe, and it relates to what you were saying, Joanna, about they're just joyful. These people are so joyful. It's how they live, that they could not believe that these people would come in and not have their best in their intention at heart. That they were looking at it for what they could get, not what they could give. And not that it's about giving or taking, but it's about being present and honoring, based on what's needed. But just, that way that we have in our Western culture, that, whose best interest are we looking out for when we're interacting and serving others? Are we doing it to serve ourselves in the end, or are we doing it, from our heart to really truly serve? Excuse me. And that's something that really stuck with me. And it really leads me to believe that intention is such a big part of what we're doing, as we, bring a lot of their cultural traditions and medicines to the West. And I think that if it's done in a good way, it can really make a difference for the future of humanity and the planet.
Yeah, and I think being in that right relationship where you're constantly getting that feedback as to what this work looks like and how it can work, because we do have our colonial mindset, and sometimes we have blind spots, and sometimes we make mistakes, and it's really important to just be open to feedback, right? And be able to see, oh, like, yeah, you're right, from this colonial perspective. Like, I've made a lot of mistakes with the Yawanwa, and they've been kind and supportive in teaching me, and I've had to do a lot of unlearning, and it's been a humbling process in that.
I can relate. And since I've been in this area, I've gotten some good feedback. Most of it has been very constructive, and understood. When it was feedback for me, to be aware of my communication, because it's how some people will interpret it at times. And just when you mentioned the blind spots, there are some things that, like for me, was kind of a shock, and I didn't understand. And as I dug deeper into it, it's like, oh, now I get it. Certainly that's not what I meant. I'm just here to serve. I want to help. I want to spread the word. Yet, like you say, there's some unlearning, and there are some good realizations, especially one time, like just about, being the privileged white male. That came up a lot. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of people, and I didn't get it for a while. And as I had some conversations and thought about it, and conversations with people I respect and have a lot of influence, just in regards to a sense of being, it really woke me up to understand where that came from in terms of the statement, and my reaction to it. And it's something that I think is really important, that we understand, we unlearn, and be sensitive to some of the things that we may not be aware. It's not what we mean necessarily, but it's how it can be interpreted and come across on an unconscious level. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important that we really consider these aspects, especially when we look at all Indigenous people around the world, and the atrocities over time that has happened to these people. I think it's really important that we do preserve the culture and the lineage, because I think they, in many ways, maybe they don't have the fancy cars and the big houses in that sense, but they certainly live a more joyful, stress-free, less anxious life.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's specifically the women, like the women, like Kunama Yuwanawa, she's my sister, mentor, teacher. She's the daughter of the two chiefs of the villages in the Yuwanawa family, and just like so much teachings around this. And also the women here that are going to be our speakers, like Lori Snyder, like such a beautiful Métis herbalist woman, like such heart medicine, and just like really learning from her. And our dear sister Magda, Blue Thunder Woman Calling, she's going to be speaking about the combo medicine and like the preciousness of that, and how she's bridging also the north and south and offering that to her communities. And also Biles, who was part of our previous Zoom when we connected with the Brazilian family there, as well as the Yawanawa family, and being able to really hear about her experiences, specifically in relation to the Kamloops residential schools, and like all of those pieces that came out right from what we've been experiencing. And this day actually falls on Reconciliation Day, so we really want to find a way to honor that and bring an evening together where we're really keeping that acknowledgement and that remembrance of the residential schools and the impact of that, and that it has on the First Nations communities and still continues to. So we just really we don't want to forget, right?
Absolutely. And I think we need to learn and do what we can as we move forward. Create a better everyday life for all people on this planet, because it's just so important. We all deserve and are entitled to live a life of peace and joy, fun, and not have, we shouldn't be living in fear like we did over the centuries past. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Mia? I see you nodding your head, and I know you're full of great wisdom.
Well, I wanted to also chime in and basically celebrate appreciation for the amazing people that will be highlighted at the event. Magdalena, who is also a dear friend of mine, she will be there. Lori Snyder is incredibly talented. Jordao, of course, I'm super excited to see him again. He brings this sort of youthful infusion into all of this work, because talking about plant medicine and relating with it doesn't always need to be so serious. As Joanna was saying about the Yuwanawa culture, we're meant to talk about it with joy. We're meant to be contagious in our energetic appreciation and attitude of gratitude. So this event is really meant to be a celebration. And what I would say about unlearning is that instead of unlearning, I like to think about it as relearning, because I don't want to unlearn, for example, the history of Maria Sabina's life. I don't want to, forget what happened to her and the cause of her death and what surrounded her death as an astute example. But I want to relearn. I want to examine history and then look at okay, we got to do better. Of course, we always got to do better. Every generation has to do better. Every generation will be living longer, will be affecting more change in the world. Everyone will be getting smarter at a younger age. And so it's really a responsibility to do better if we know better. So for me, I'm just intent on relearning the ways in which maybe there is some outdated programming, outdated grooves in our brain about how to relate with the world. And of course, to be, curious, very, very curious, and to keep an open mind, open ears, open heart with all of this.
Great reframe. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to give context to Jordao de Souza Pecunti is his Yawanawa name. He's the one who's married to Kunama Yawanawa, and he's also the son of Padrinho Paulo Roberto from Brazil, from the Santo Daime lineage, so direct descendant. So, quite a special guest to have, bringing a lot of the Yawanawa transmission through his music. He's been studying with the Yawanawa for a long time. He got to study with Pajé Tata, was a shaman in the village lived to 103 years old, and really carried a lot of that transmission of the knowledge that Jordao got to learn from him and did the Muka diet, the 1 year diet. That was a very strong transformational experience. And so we're just really blessed to have him and bringing the Yawanawa energy with him and sharing it with us in the event.
And I understand, so Hale will be there as well?
That's right. So Hale is going to be there as well, so Mimi, and he's going to speak about the projects with Jordao, specifically the Nipai Garden of the Medicines, as which we're focusing on the medicinal plants, as well as the food security for those medicine men and women. And yeah, and we're going to have a silent auction. We're going to have cartoonists, actually. His name is Mark. He's going to be drawing. And we're going to have music and obviously Yawanawa jewelry for sale, vendors, and a lot of really great VIP tickets. We have some, I don't know if Mia, if you want to speak to the VIP tickets and what's going to be offered.
Yeah, so the VIP tickets are a way of basically acknowledging people who feel and have the resources to give back in a nominally more supportive way to the Yawanawa tribe. And essentially what you can expect if you have a VIP or if you are a VIP ticket holder is you can expect more of an intimate meet and greet with the speakers, which is really special. And that includes jewelry, also gifts from the Yawanawa. And I think that also includes a healing session if one would like with Jordao, who's such an incredibly talented healer. I personally have actually received his healing. That's a whole other story, but essentially Jordao has been actually trained by I think one of the last original pages from the Amazon rainforest. Is that correct, Joanna, or do you know more about that?
Yeah, that's Page Tata that I just shared.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, a VIP ticket holder has access to these incredible, very much more personalized gifts as well, if they decide to.
Nice. Now, this all is happening, folks. If you're watching here live, if you're watching after the fact, in the comments below, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, there is a link to the fundraiser page on Eventbrite, which you can see in the comments there. And we encourage you to go take a look and register. And this all happens on September 30th at the St. James Hall in Vancouver, which is a beautiful venue. It's over 100 years old. I believe it used to be a church at one time, and it's a fantastic venue as well for this type of an event. And I also understand that you're live streaming it as well. So, no matter where you are in the world, this is one of the things I love about the digital platforms and these kind of ways of doing things, is not everybody's always able to travel and attend these things from their location when they're just live in-person events. And I love that you ladies have embrace the live stream and are streaming it out to the world for everybody who wants to be part of it. And I just want to encourage anybody who has the means and who, even if you don't necessarily have the means, is there something that you can give and do beyond ourselves to support these people, the Yawanawa tribe and the work that's being done, because it is really important and every little bit helps. And especially if you're a proponent of psychedelic medicines, plant medicines, and things of that nature, I think it's really important to be able to give back in a way that recognizes and acknowledges the Indigenous history of what I consider more traditional medicine that goes back through the ages, of course. And I think it's just really important because, Joanna, as you mentioned, the illegal mining and things that are happening down in the rainforest, it needs to change. We need to preserve the planet because the planet can't take any more of this devastation as well as the people on it, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what else would you like to share about this wonderful event? It's a Friday night, I believe. Is September 30th a Friday?
Yeah, Friday, September 30th. Yeah, I think it's also a great place for people to get together who are interested in these topics of healing, of the Amazon, of Indigenous empowerment and support, about medicines, and so it's just a really great place to come in person and interact with each other, to have really great conversations conversations, build community around it, find out how you can get involved. If you're not able to make it in person, we're also offering an online option as well, live streaming, paid live streaming, and then also the option to have a recording after. But like there's always the opportunity to reach out to Amazonia Yurahu Alliance, and we can kind of provide those contacts, or to Mia specifically. Just even like with Mia and myself, how we're coming from like two different organizations, but coming together and collaborating. Mia really like felt the call to connect and support this mission. So really grateful for her volunteering and her like all the different skill set that she brings and her presence. And so we're really blessed to have you as well, Mia. So thank you very much, bringing in, your collaboration with Psychedelic Salons as well, and building more community, more bridging.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the name of the game, bridging. And yeah, well, thank you for really letting me into the beautiful mission of the Amazonia Yurahu Alliance. So sending some love right back.
And I also want to, just put this out there that, people, we can donate and contribute anytime. It doesn't have to just be one day, and the fundraiser is a great way to do it and to connect in community. Do you have a GoFundMe page that or anything like that where people can donate at other times other than just a fundraiser if the timing's not good for them? Is there any ability for that?
Yeah, if people go to yurahu.org, so yurahu.org, and we'll give that link, and then people can donate at any time. They can do a one-time donation. If they feel the call to do a reoccurring monthly donation, we also have that option on our website, and then that allows us to receive those donations and continue to support that project. Specifically, recently we're kind of looking into our sister organization, Yushane, has started to kind of create essential oils out of the medicinal plants, which allows the Yawanawa to travel and create leaf fats without having to carry the plants, still carrying the essence. And we're also introducing a lot of the young Yawanawa youth to get involved and to learn this tradition so that they can keep passing on that into the generations, and creating a school for them to be able to offer them that space to learn and be interested and excited, with opportunities to travel as well, because as they're doing ceremonies, they will also need support for medicinal plant leaf fats to facilitate those. And so how to kind of continue to support the Amazon specifically, and the Yawanawa people, and their presence on their territory, to make sure that they keep protecting that area of the Amazon rainforest. And they have a lot of partnerships and allies that if anyone was to encroach on their territory, I'm sure there'd be a lot of support. However, whatever it takes, really, right, to really preserve that land and how special that is, and all the plants that are in there that could easily be destroyed and are being destroyed, right, when we're not really doing our part for the world, really, for Earth, right?
Yeah,
So.
and I think it's important for people to know, if they're not already aware, but just the damage that is being done to the rainforest on many different levels. And South America and that rainforest is so important. I've seen it referred to as the lungs of the earth, the lungs of our planet, and we need to really make sure that we maintain that and support that so we don't destroy it.
And the home of the beautiful medicine of ayahuasca and of kambo and of hape, all the beautiful medicines that we get to partake in our communities as well. And so, like, what a way to give back, right, to the stewards of the land who hold those traditions and keep that knowledge alive and supported, right? So bringing it back to reciprocity. Yeah.
Well, and if we look through history, the indigenous cultures around the world were great keepers of the lands. There was no destruction in that sense. They honored it. They lived in it. That was part of who they are. And to see some of the devastation over the past centuries through history, I think it's really important that we honor and we do what we can to support the rejuvenation of the planet, and of course the people, which is equally as important. So I
Yeah,
really
our
thank and
Indigenous.
appreciate the work that you guys are doing, because we need to really draw this to the attention. It's not just a psychedelic renaissance where people can just go do their thing. There's a history, there's a lot to be learned about where these medicines come from, how they work, and to really acknowledge them in a sacred and fair way, and not just turn it into capitalistic commercialism.
Well, like, we need our Indigenous brothers and sisters to show us the way through this transformation that we're all going through, especially with the psychedelic movement. And like you said, the corporatization of the psychedelic medicines and what we're seeing. And when it's not connected to the heart and to spirit, it kind of loses its essence, and it starts to maybe become harmful in a way, right? And so how to keep those alignments, those values. And I really think that if we have a connection to our Indigenous brothers and sisters in the Amazon, or here in British Columbia, right, specifically to all the different groups that are here that really need our support as well, I think that's how we stay true to the ethics and integrity of this work, in alignment as to why we're doing this work. And yeah, to be aware of when we maybe stray from the path of that.
You bet. How about Mia? Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I want to emphasize that this event is a call to action that is actually very urgent for preserving the lifeblood of our plant medicines. Like, in terms of spirit plant medicines, many people in the world, or in the Western world, I'll say, think of, plant medicine as cannabis. And plant medicine is way more than cannabis. There's psilocybin, there's also sananga and hatay and kambo and ayahuasca. And there are tens of thousands of completely undocumented Amazonian plant medicine that is unknown to Westerners. So the fact that people like Paul Stamets are becoming only more well known and revered, in fact, is no coincidence. The mycelial network, the plant medicines are speaking to humanity now and saying, like, wake up. If you want to preserve the medicine, it does mean preserving the planet. It means keep your home, take care of your home. So this is really an important call to action. This entire event is, and that's what it's meant to inspire, and that's what calls Joanna and I so deeply to this. And just thinking about all of the plant medicines that we don't even know to be humble to, like Joanna was alluding to, about teaching us about women's health and women's fertility medicines, and just things that we are not even aware of as problems in Western society, really just humbles me. And I would see deforestation and industrialization of the rainforest as akin to burning the Library of Alexandria. It's no different to me. So yeah, this is important.
Great metaphor. I really like that. That's powerful. Now, ladies, before we wrap up, I just want to make sure that if you have anything else that you want to share with our community and the world, that we get that in, because I want to make sure that we invite people to this fundraiser on September 30th here in Vancouver. You can join us live online, and you can join us live in person. The most important aspect is that we become even more aware, and we take action to do what we can to support the continuation of these ancient practices and people.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to say thank you, Marc, for allowing us to be part of this interview conversation, and kind of sharing with the audience as well about like really starting a conversation around this. And if there's any people that want to come forth and share any kind of specific pieces that might be relevant for the continuous evolution of what we're doing, I'm more than happy to receive that with love and appreciation for what we can continue to build, whether it's like new partnerships in the community, collaboration, speakers, or just venues or different ways of fundraising or getting involved, we really welcome that. And yeah, just looking forward to having you come, whoever is able to our fundraiser on September 30th at St. James Hall. And we're going to have a lovely group of speakers, musicians, vendors, like we shared, as well as entertainment, and also some after kind of program conversations as well. And so we just really encourage your support in the community. And if you're not able to make it, again, the live streaming as well as video after, or if you want to get involved in other ways, we're definitely open to volunteers and for future events and future fundraising opportunities. And so we really welcome that as well if you want to contact us through yurahu.org.
Fantastic. Well, I just want to say, ladies, I always honor the divine feminine, and the psychedelic feminism, as Zoe Helene would have coined the phrase. We're always welcome to support that in any which way we can through our spirit plant medicine community, and that you always have an open invitation. Anytime you want to share your voice or your message, I'm always happy to get on and create this conversation so that we can hopefully inspire others and wake up some different ways of thinking so that we can be stewards of this planet in an even better way. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you at the conference, so let's make sure we do something so we can have some sort of fundraiser option there as well for you. I know Sohail will be there with some of his products and things as well, so we'll see what we can do and make sure that we have a presence for your fundraising efforts there as well.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Well, thank you very much for reaching out, and again, anytime. But I just want to put it out there to our community. Check this out, September 30th, St. James Hall in Vancouver. And if you're not in Vancouver, join us online. We look forward to seeing you again in the very near future. Take care.